Let's talk about John Donne's The Flea because it's an old poem from the 1600s, but it is a poem that I think holds up very well as far as the energy that we have in this poem. There's a banter in this poem. There's something that's really neat about this poem is that there is a speaker who is talking to someone basically kind of off screen. And there's action happening between each stanza that the following stanza kind of plays off of. So even though we only have one speaker here, there is a relationship going on here. There's an energy, there's a dynamic between the speaker and who he is speaking to, and his audience member is actually influencing what he says by what she does between the stanza breaks. And we'll look at that. It's an old poem, and it can be a little bit shocking to some students that a poem from the 1600s could be basically a man requesting premarital sex from a woman. But there's nothing new in the world. The world keeps spinning. Things don't really change. Whatever cliche you can think of. But yes, of course, men in the 1600s, women in the 1600s were interested in premarital sex, and this is a relic we have from long, long ago that helps kind of prove that you know procreation of a species hasn't necessarily been a problem or seen as a chore by many people, including our speaker. We can't say our speaker is John Donne, but I wonder, and I'll leave it at that. You read some of John Donne's biography, and I like to say that John Donne is the speaker of the Flea. That's me. Please don't tell if you're watching this for another class. I don't think I'd go in to your teacher and say, speaker is John Donne. I like it better if the speaker of the Flea is John Donne. So that's me. So what we see here, we've got three parts of this poem, and that's important. I'm going to go ahead and get into this that we'll see backed up hopefully later on. I think it's important here we have three parts here because it reinforces immediately the idea of a trinity. And that is important for this poem because the flea becomes this symbol of the trinity for the speaker. The speaker is able to kind of morph this kind of disgusting parasite of a flea into the Trinity, something that is one life, but in one life holds three. And so here we have three parts. I think that's an interesting poetic move that we have three stanzas. And the number three is just important, anyways. Always be on the lookout for the number three when you're trying to interpret things in literature, because that's an easy check mark you can click on to throw out in discussion that, hey, three, three, three. Let's talk about the religious significance of three here, Trinity, and we do have it here. So let's talk about the first stanza. Mark, but this flea, and mark in this how little that which thou deniest me is. It sucked me first, and now sucks thee, and in this flea are two bloods mingled be. Thou knowest that this cannot be said a sin, nor shame, nor loss of maidenhead, yet this enjoys before it woo, and pampered swells with one blood made of two, and this, alas, is more than we would do. Okay, our speaker here makes it clear without being blatant of exactly the context of what he's requesting here, and that would be premarital sex. I mean, now we have the kind of the cultural, depending on where you're at, but most of the cultures you've got the freedom to be pretty blunt uh, about sexuality and passion and things like that. But this is before the days of 3 6 Mafia, and this is the speaker would be bound uh, to be a little bit more subtle. But I think it makes it clear here that he's requesting premarital sex. Okay, and this is only reinforced through it. So basically, what's going on here? Our speaker, for me, that's John Donne, but that's just for me. Sees a flea on his love, And he points out this flea, and he uses this flea in an argument that you can kind of tell they've had this argument before. And so this is an old argument that he would like to win. He would like to get what he wants. And so he uses this flea as an opportunity to prove a point, to prove why he's right. And anyone who's been in a relationship, you've done this, or you've had it done to you, where someone will take something that they're observing and they'll pull it into what you're discussing. Even if it doesn't fit, they'll make it fit. And that's what he does here. So he says, hey, look at that flea on you. This flea has already bitten me, and it's got my blood in it. And now this flea is sucking blood from you. So look, our bloods are mingled in this flea. And here he gets into basically the idea of premarital sex being equated to bloods mingling. Okay, and he says, you know what? No one can say that this flea biting us is a sin, or that there's shame here, or that you've lost your maidenhead. That would be loss of virginity, right? The maidenhead would be going back to virginity. And then he says, basically, you shouldn't be ashamed. No one could shame you for what this flea has done. And then notice what he says at the end. He says, and the flea has done more than we would do. And of course, this we would do would be a physical consummation of their passion, right? So that first stanza, he establishes that the flea is going to be his metaphor for sexuality. Okay, and the flea here has already mingled their blood together, and he'll extend this metaphor in the next stanza, because in between stanza 1 and 2, something happens. The speaker makes a move, and she makes a move to squish this flea, as I'm sure many of us would. If somebody pointed out we had a flea on it, we'd want to squish it, especially if it was sucking our blood. But he says, "Oh, stay! 3 lives and 1 flea spare, where we almost, nay, more than married are. This flea is you and I, and this our marriage bed, and marriage temple is. Though parents grudge, and you, we are met and cloistered in these living walls of jet. Though use make you apt to kill me, let not to that self-murder added be, and sacrilege 3 sins in killing 3." I love the playfulness here. He's thinking on his feet. He's having to adapt because she is going to destroy his metaphor that he's trying to use to persuade what he wants. And so he's trying to say, whoa, whoa, hold your hand there. Don't squish that flea. Uh, he says basically, spare the flea where we almost, nay, more than married are. I love the way he says, look at how he's thinking here. He catches himself. Here, he addresses that they are not married, but he catches himself. He was almost going to say, "We are almost married in that flea," and he catches himself and he knows, no, no, that's not strong enough. We're not almost married. We're more than married. We don't need that certificate. We're more than married in that flea and what that flea has done, because he basically says that the flea is you and I, and the flea is our marriage bed and marriage temple. So the flea becomes this symbolic union of our speaker and his the woman that he's talking to. He look at the word choice he uses here. He says cloistered in these living walls of jet. So the living walls of jet would be the inside of the flea. I guess the flea's belly, that their blood is already mingled together. Um, Cloistered is a good word choice there, because this would go to like a cloisterer, and that's a religiously charged word. A cloisterer would be someone who's like a religious hermit. They live in a religious dwelling. Think about like a monk or something like that. They would live a cloistered lifestyle, a lifestyle of religious servitude and things like that. And so that's awareness of kind of religion being an argument against premarital sex, because he does say we're not married, we're more than married, but they're still not married. So he wants to consummate a marriage that's not present. He wants to have premarital sex without marriage. Um, Notice at the end, I like here, he kind of does some math. Like he gets his little abacus out and he starts moving those beads around. He says, your gut may make you your gut reaction is to kill me. Like your gut reaction is to squish that flea. But if you squish the flea, Not only you're killing the flea, you're killing yourself and you're committing sacrilege because you're also killing our marriage temple. So here, he says the act that she has, if she is to squish the flea, as she makes a move to do, that not only would she kill him because the flea has his blood, she would also kill herself. Self murder because the flea has her blood, and then also she would commit sacrilege because this flea is their marriage temple. It's the union of their blood. And so it's like math here. Hey, you know what? God would take one sin over three any day. So one sin, premarital sex, three sins, and you killing the flea, it's an easy choice. I think that's kind of an insinuation here from our speaker. But at the end of our second stanza, before our third one, our audience member makes another movement and she squishes the flea. And I can see that she squishes the flea and looks up at him with a cocked eyebrow, just waiting to see where he's going to go next. Because when she kills the flea, based on the logic of the second stanza, he should have dropped dead and she should have dropped dead. And so she squishes the flea and she looks up at him with a smile in her eyes and probably on her face because there he still stands, there she still stands, and they're, of course, not dead, even though she's purpled her nail with blood of innocence. So let's read the third stanza. Cruel and sudden hast thou since purpled thy nail in blood of innocence. Wherein could this flea be guilty be, except in that drop which it sucked from thee? Yet thou triumphs, and sayest that thou find'st not thyself nor me the weaker now. 'Tis true. Then learn how false fears be. Just so much honor, when thou yields to me, will waste, as this flea's death took life from thee. I love this stanza because he has to backpedal on what he said in the first and second stanza, but he does it quite gracefully. This speaker is adaptable, and adaptability is good if you're trying to persuade, because anything can happen. And so what's happened is what he didn't want to happen. She squished his flea. She destroyed the symbol that he'd spent two stanzas creating. And he made it clear that if she did this, he would die and she would die, and there'd be sacrilege. And he spins it. It's about spin control here. He turns it to his favor. He says that flea was guiltless. All it did was take a drop of blood from you. And he acknowledges that she thinks she's won the argument. He says, "Yet thou triumphst, and sayest that thou find not thyself nor me the weaker now." Being married, I can hear and appreciate kind of the this idea of sometimes when you have a discussion with a loved one, with your wife or husband or girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, when you're having a discussion that's a debate, not a fight necessarily, but when you're debating, and you think you get the upper hand on the other person, but then they're able to take that upper hand away from you. That's what our speaker here is trying to do at the end. He sees that she thinks she's gotten the upper hand, and he's trying to end this by saying, "No, I have the upper hand," because he's able to say, "You're right that you're not weaker, and I'm not weaker, and you being right illustrates that your fears about premarital sex are false fears," because he says you're going to lose as much honor when you yield to me, so you'll lose as much honor when we have sex as you lost life when you killed the flea, which is not at all. So he's able to end the argument saying, you know what? You killed this innocent flea. You had no reason to do it, and you say that you're not weak, that I'm not weak, and you're right. But also know that the fears you have of yielding to me, the fears you have of consummating our passions, of being intimate, these are false fears because you're not going to lose anything. You'll lose as much honor when you yield to me as you lost life when you killed the flea. And so this is kind of a last ditch effort to keep that upper hand in this discussion. I find that some students find this an incredibly creepy poem, and yeah, I mean, I guess that's there. I mean, he's decided out of all the stuff in the world he could have chosen to be a symbol of their love, he chooses a flea. Um, that may be just kind of, no matter how you spin it, you can't really polish that up very prettily. But I think it's a playful poem. I like it. I like that he has to kind of uh, he has to dance on his feet a little bit to keep up with his audience and what she's doing kind of off screen. I like the energy of it, as I said, and I think it's a poem that's still very relatable to our society today, to relationships that we have today, where you do have two wills that don't always coincide. One person wants maybe what someone else doesn't, or maybe both want it, but someone is not quite willing to act on it yet. And that happened in the 1600s. I'm sure it happens today. So I hope you found some of the insights here useful in better understanding Donne's poem here. And I look forward to hearing from you on the discussion board to see what you think of it. Thank you.